I'd say my biggest piece of advice is don't be proud. Don't follow the status quo that says stay in your lane, be a gym owner, be brick and mortar, because if you want to stay open, you need to stay abreast with the market and how the market's changing, which is a dynamically profound way right now.
Good afternoon, guys. This is Eric LeClaire over at Push Press. Today, I'm really happy to be joined by an old friend, someone who has circled around, and as we've done in the trenches so long, I notice our circles are getting smaller and smaller. But today we're joined by Chandler Walker. We've got ChansLogic in the house, and I'm super excited to kind of push some buttons and dig in on some history and provide some learning lessons for those of you that are going to be tuning in today. I can't imagine anybody in the audience not knowing who you are, Chandler, but by all means, thank you so much for your time today. I really do look forward to digging in. How are you?
Doing well. Happy to be here. I think in the gym world, I might be an original gangster at this point.
Yeah.
So, hopefully everybody, if they know me, they like me. If they don't like me, then find me and talk to me, because I want you to like me. And hopefully listen to this. You guys your eyes don't glaze over and you don't fall asleep and pass out, especially if you're driving, because that would be a disaster. And so let's give everyone value here.
I dig it, man. I totally dig it. So if we can go back to the beginning, where do you want to open up? Where do you think the most value is here? Do you want to start in the gym, or do you want to dig in before that?
Probably before that. I had so many good mentors leading to the gym, looking back, that led me to this philosophy of like, just make it to the next meal, which ultimately is like creating micro motivation to lead to big success. And so looking back, there's so many mentors before the gym that really helped me achieve that mindset. And I think, go ahead.
Were those coaches of yours? Were they professors? Who were they?
A combination. So my parents were a big influence on me. Looking back, they've probably influenced everything I do up to this day. I had a really good professor he was a Naval Academy instructor who really introduced math as a concept I could understand. Like it changed my life. He would take us into his office, buy pizza. He would do anything in his power to get you just to hang out to learn math. And it was just profound. Like I learned calculus that year. I was struggling. I hated math, hated numbers, couldn't fathom how to understand him. And that man changed my entire domain and life around numbers.
Wow. I bet that helped forward when you look at projections, finance, profitability, margins. I'm sure that helped tremendously as the gym owner.
Yeah, it helped a ton, just understanding like key KPIs, being able to understand my own KPIs, being able to create KPIs for staff, and then being able to look back and make projections. So is our 3-month, instead of, I think a lot of gym owners get into this mindset of like, this month was bad, so we need to change everything, versus it should be this month was bad, but let's look at how the last 3 months went. Were they good? And is this month like a fluke? If it's just a fluke, move on, do the same thing the next month. If the next month's bad, okay, now let's make some changes and adjust, because those are real projections. Like you can understand and not make emotional decisions off of the actual business applications that are happening by the numbers.
Right. That makes sense. That totally makes sense. I can't tell you how many gym owners struggle with that point. Operating from either absolute fear that it's all going to blow up if they don't get it right now.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so emotional. It's like, oh, well, these 5 leads didn't show up, so I have to change my whole process. And it's like, well, how did the last 25 leads go? Like, what happened? Did you get a lot of, what is your no-show rate? Well, I don't know. Well, then we can't make proper projections because you don't know your numbers.
Would you say that would be the weakest point? Because I know you've consulted with gyms. I know you've consulted with gym owners and coaches, and and I'm super excited to jump into the business development side. But in all the analysis you've done to help gyms, I think that's one of the weakest points, just the lack of knowledge of where their head needs to be at all times in the numbers, in the finance, and the day-to-day operations? Or
yeah,
do you think?
I think so, because I think gym owners run a very emotional ecosystem of management. They want to be on the floor. They want to be coaching their people. Typically they did this for the love of the game, and then they get into the game and they don't understand most of the numbers that are important. For example, like if I was working with a gym owner and they were saying, hey, I can't get leads, I'd ask them, well, what are you doing? Oh, well, we just wait for our website to bring leads in. Oh, okay. Or some of them were running Facebook ads and they'd say they don't work. Okay, well, what's your return on ad spend? What's your spin? What's your show up rate? What are your KPIs? Well, I don't know. I don't track anything. And
right.
I think it's a huge detriment. And then it's like, okay, you get on the sales desk with your staff. They're like, well, I've got this guy doing sales, and if we can get him in, we can close anything. Oh, okay, cool. So you know what your close percentage is then. Well, no.
They go,
Well,
I
then
don't know.
we don't know if you can close anything then. I literally don't know.
Man. So did you bring all of this knowledge? Did you have it before you opened the gym, or did you establish yourself as like a student of this learning, the whole process? I mean, we talked about you love learning and you continually learn your way through every project. Did you stumble yourself when you first opened the gym? Where was your weaknesses?
Yeah, I was a disaster when we first opened the gym. And I always tell people like, I'm too dumb to stop learning. So I've just screwed everything up so many times that I know how to do things now. But when we first opened the gym, like I went to school for biochemistry and molecular biology, went on like on a med school track, and then pulled myself away to be able to have a more holistic approach and not essentially be giving medication for a living. And that's not a shot at doctors. It's a shot at the system. Like you're hamstrung. There is no follow-up. And so at the time we had a blog called like StoneAgeFuel.blogspot.com. And I would go into the microbiology lab and I would test like probiotics and proteins and just write about it on the blog. And so I didn't realize it at the time, but that was like actual marketing, because we started getting invited to do seminars and all that. And then we opened the brick and mortar, and it was a whole new world. Like the first year, I would get up at 4 a.m. and I would leave the gym around 11 p.m. if I didn't stay the night there. And I would take naps in the back. And so I still remember, like, I would be taking a nap in the back, and we had a little bell above the door, and it would ring, and I'd pop up and run outside, pretend like I wasn't just sleeping with a new customer coming in.
With your hair just like that, because you're like,
yeah, just like this. Like, oh my, sleep in my eyes. My breath probably stinks. This guy's like, wow, is this a homeless person living here?
Like, no, I own the gym. Let's go. What do you want to do?
Yeah, let's do this.
I love it. I so love it. So did you have any infrastructure put in place, any systems, any processes? I mean, what year is this? For people that don't know when you opened the gym, what year are we talking about?
Yeah, we started opening, and the beginnings of opening the physical location was 2012. Okay. And we had the blog and the online infrastructure since about 2010. And then we had a big grand opening in 2013 for the physical gym itself. And so back then, it wasn't as ripe with like consultants and marketing companies and all the things that are around now. So we opened up, I think we had Zen Planner, and we had a plan to fill the gym for $159 a month membership, which was pretty big time. I think it's actually probably still pretty high in terms of the market. I think the average gym's like 119 or something, but we were able to fill our gym up within the first month or so to be able to cover the overhead and pay ourselves. But what we didn't do was understand that we were doing things 24/7. So I was on the floor, I was doing the marketing, I was doing the sales, I was on the phones, my partner was doing all the back end work. And so we lived there, and we'd take naps in the back, and we didn't have anything established. Like if I got hit by a car, the whole business would have crumbled.
Right. Yeah. You were working in the business and on the business and all of it at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. I was owner, operator, CEO, investor, janitor, toilet plunger, everything.
Yeah. Yep. Go from teaching snatch and clean and jerk to taking care of faucets in 1 hour's time span. I know that feeling.
It'd be like, hey, let's teach snatch. Why did that kid poop on the floor?
Yeah, right. Exactly. So what was your staff? I mean, was it you? You said you had a partner.
Yeah.
Any coaches?
We had myself and my partner. And then within we didn't have any coaches in the beginning. We didn't understand that you needed coaches to start the business. We were incredibly ignorant in the whole process in the beginning. And so we had us two basically running everything. And we had this philosophy of like, we had a 6 a.m. class, we had a 10 a.m. class, we had a noon, we had a 4:30, 5:30, 6:30, and we were doing them all. So it's like teach and snatch 12 hours straight. It's kind of a miserable disaster. It's beautiful chaos.
The energy given to that PM class is not what was given to 6 a.m. It's just like, get through it, go home.
Yeah, it's like, hey, I'm going to be over here in my lawn chair drinking a Keystone Light. You just don't die.
I love it. I so love it. So when did you have that aha moment, or what pushed you over the edge, or even maybe pulled you over the edge to say something's got to give?
Yeah. So I had a mentor. It was a SEAL mentor back in the day when I decided that I was going to like just try and jump into that program. And he had this concept, and I remembered it, and it brought me back. And it was this concept of brass rings. And so he was always telling me, you have to build these incremental brass rings that help you climb the ladder to get to the final rung. But if you're always trying to reach that final rung, you're never going to get there. And so I recognized that we were always chasing this dream of building this big gym, building this profitable thing, but we weren't even achieving the small rungs. And so I thought, I knew we were going to burn out before we got there. And then the next thing that really changed it was my little sister. She looked at me, and she was 6 or 7, and she goes, are you a vampire? Totally
Oh,
normal, totally like nice, innocent. And I was like, no, what do you mean? She goes, well, because I only ever see you come out at night. And I was like, all right, I got to change my lifestyle. This is horrible.
yeah. Yep. No, for sure. For sure. So systems and processes wise, what did you overhaul? How did you sit with your partner and say something has to change? Did you guys go back to square one, or did you roll or implement a system that was available kind of in the space?
Yeah. So back then we essentially looked at it and we said, okay, we can't, this isn't sustainable. This is going to work. And so we started looking at, all right, what can we do to bring our time back and to achieve more profitability in the business, but also bring staff on and remove our need to be there 24/7. So the first thing we did is we chopped about half our classes. It went from, I think we had like a 6 a.m., a noon, and a 5:30 at that point. And that was it. 3 classes. And it was Monday, Wednesday, Friday for those 3. Tuesday, Thursday was 2 classes. And when we swore that we would never increase into another class unless there was 7 people that were in that class every single day for like 3 or 4 weeks, then we would bring on a new class. But we started bringing that in. We started kind of bringing on staff members, talking to coaches to bring them in to coach some of the classes. So we didn't have to coach them all, especially like the 6 a.m. at the time. And then at that point, there was only one business consultancy really. So we signed up for the biz back in the day.
Yeah,
And
John.
yeah, with,
Everyone, well,
yeah. And I just had a conversation with him the other day. So it's kind of cool to bring it back. And so like that essentially helped us, like we built up contracts. They had contracts we could use. They had policies and procedures and planning documents and just a lot of infrastructure support that I thought was really useful for us to be able to
right.
install standard operating procedures and train staff on how to do it. And so it was incredibly beneficial to have the realization to do some of it ourselves, but also find a mentor at that point in time to really kind of help propel us forward.
So that was maybe at that time, maybe 2012, 2013 ish, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Was the biz fully separate then from CrossFit LA? Was John running his own separate entity at that time?
They were the same thing, John and Andy, on all the videos, and everything was at CrossFit LA. So they had like a little office in CrossFit LA where they managed the biz stuff.
Yeah. Oh, we may have been sitting in the same audience when there was the biz like summit, or it was the biz
Yeah.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday summit, and we sat in that little annex on the side with the 7 chairs and like had the whole whiteboard. I mean, it was a totally different world back then. I don't think folks today know the amount of hoops folks jump through to like learn, to, classes, courses, summits, online. Like today it's everywhere.
Oh, yeah. It's easy today. Back then it was a disaster. It's like I have to piece together 17 different things to make one thing work and travel all over the place to talk and then do phone calls and kind of use spreadsheets to hold myself accountable.
Yeah, exactly. So you took some of that information, you went back up and said, okay, here's the new system. When did you start to see a return on your energy, your sleep, your health, your vitality? Like, did that change, or did you still have another year or so of building systems in place before you felt relief?
Yeah, I'm kind of the mindset of I'm obsessive compulsive about things, and I install processes and we make them happen like immediately, as long as it doesn't impact the clients too much. So within the first like 3 months, we were like refreshed, we were sleeping, we didn't have to get up at 6 a.m. anymore to coach that class. I wasn't cleaning the bathrooms. Like people were like registering for their appointments to do the sales conversations. I was scripting it out to talk to people in the beginning. Then we had the marketing established. We were running a 21-day challenge before challenges were popular. I was like, why don't we just run a challenge? This will be fun.
Oh man, I dig it. I totally dig it. So did you end up pulling out of operations and kind of observing from above or from the side as you developed these other leaders, or did you still have one foot in the trenches coaching?
Yeah. So I always maintained one foot in the youth coaching platform just because it was like a passion of mine. I really enjoyed it and I wanted to be there. It was like a hobby almost that made money. So it was a cool hobby passion. But outside of that, I removed myself from most coaching. I would stay in the back and I would manage the growth of the business. I would manage strategic partnerships and relationships. I would look at numbers and projections, like are our like sales staff hitting their goals? Are our coaches hitting their goals? Are they maintaining retention? What does our projection of growth look like? And so I was able to really focus and manage kind of that stuff, I guess, in a CEO role. And my partner was able to step back and manage more of like an operations role. So she would manage like staff and manage typical inside the gym operations. So that way everything was in order and working well, which turned out really great because she's a better manager of people, but I'm a better kind of people corraller. So we work really well together in the CEO, COO operations side of things.
That makes sense. That's, I think, another reflection point on a lot of the gyms that we either consult on behalf of or work with, and the resistance to step off the floor and mature in that ownership, ascend in that ownership realm, rather than like warm-ups and skills and drills and the strength, like in the programming and in the coaching, they're 100%, or they want to be 100%. But then you ask them about, hey, when have you taken care of the scripts? When have you done the phone calls? When have you done the follow-ups? When you've done the marketing? Like, all that is zero. And they're 10 years in or 50 in, and that's it. It's kind of broken.
It's a disaster. And I can tell you, like, one of the biggest mentoring moments for me with my staff was I had one of our guys was struggling with sales, and he was feeling down on himself. And I felt that if he was struggling, it was my responsibility to mentor him. It wasn't his fault. It was my fault essentially for not prepping him right. So I sat down with him. We wrote a script out for him. He memorized the script, and his percentage went up like 25 points just because we sat there and we took the time to create a standard operating procedure that he could follow. And we worked together when he was struggling. And if I was on the floor 24/7, I would have never spent the time to do that. I would have told him just figure it out.
Right. And then it would have been frustration on his behalf, potentially irritation on your behalf, and then overwhelm, and then potentially quit or lost coach, and then failed system down the road.
Exactly. And with a lot of gyms, what happens at that point is coach leaves, coach opens a gym loses half their members. And it's this perpetual cycle from lack of mentorship. And it's not the fault of the gym owner. It's the fault of the fact that they're stuck in this system where they have to be on the floor 24/7. So they cannot be part of the mentorship and growth of their staff.
Which is critical if the gym is ever going to evolve from that like crawl, walk, run phase, right? They're stuck in that crawl phase because they're in those circles.
Exactly.
Man, I hindsight being 2020, obviously we've all learned, we've all evolved, we've gone through some very similar struggles. Did that challenge you to then say, look, I can now replicate this. I want to start sharing. I want to start teaching. I want to start mentoring others besides your coaching staff, your immediate leadership, the ones that were now front facing, working with your clients. When did you end up having enough time to say, now I want to build out systems or start partnering with other brands?
Yeah, it's kind of in my experience, what's happened is the more I do well at things, the more people start asking questions, and the more I recognize that there's a need in the market to kind of build on what we did. And so at this point, I was able to, I think it was like late 2014, early 2015, maybe, I started sharing kind of stuff that we were doing freely just on the internet. I made 52 episodes of a podcast. Just basically our entire system was a horrible podcast just because the sound was bad. It was before podcasts were popular, but that got a lot of attention. And then the ChansLogic brand started kind of my personal brand. I was like, I read the book from one of the books from Gary Vaynerchuk, and I was like, I probably should make a personal brand. And then it grew to like 25,000 followers. And at that point we were like, all right, let's level ourselves up. Let's look for maybe another mentor. So we don't end up being stagnant. And it's when I kind of found the MabLab Group and jumped on with what they do in their systems. But inside that forum, I was still kind of sharing information and helping a lot of people at their request. I didn't want to try to like take clients or anything like that, but that led me into managing their marketing as the marketing director. And then eventually staff started falling off from what they were doing. And then I had to take over as the chief of growth role, which was like managing all the technology, all the marketing, all the sales, and essentially the infrastructure of the growth of this organization. And so it kind of
all these different balls in the air.
Yeah. Now it's like, okay, I got this physical location, but now I have to figure out how to manage and run an online business too, which is incredibly different. And so I had to take what I knew from here, which was relationship building, referral strategies, the marketing that I had from here, and move it to an online world where you don't have physical touch points other than Zoom meetings. Eventually, in the beginning, it was like a phone call and a Basecamp account. And so it became, okay, how do I manage myself now? Because I'm going to start falling apart if I have to be managing the CEO operations in the gym and then a higher level operation over here. So I really had to structure my days in ways to where I had the gym focus, I had the MadLab focus, and everything had to coincide and flow. So that way I didn't overstretch and ultimately kill myself, which I did a little bit.
Yeah, no, I believe it. I mean, I don't want to say I saw the rise and fall of participants inside MadLab, but like any structure of order and organization, you've got your key players and individuals that are thriving. Let's back up actually for a second. For those that are watching and may not know what MadLab is or was, because it's obviously gone through some evolutions, what solutions did it help provide for affiliate owners and micro gym owners?
Yeah, MadLab basically provided the opportunity to create a high level, high touch point, high ticket service for gym owners who want to get away from like challenges and stuff like that. So they essentially, I would say they made the idea of one-on-one PT up front popular. So in the beginning, MadLab was like the one who promoted that, who made that popular and made that a thing. And then the idea of a hybrid coaching program. So attaching coach to clients, paying coaches a percentage of revenue. And that ultimately kind of became the MadLab model.
Right. And so they were a little bit different, or besides providing structure, organization, payroll structure, sales structure, compensation, obviously payroll, but compensation structures, that was totally different than what was offered in the rest of the world. Like not many business models were going in that direction at that time, correct?
No, yeah, it was like this brand new fancy thing where it wasn't really well known. The idea of selling like $1,000 plus ticket up front was kind of like off the wall. It wasn't popular yet. And so this high ticket gym idea concept was very new and it's in its infancy. So when people adopted it, if they were able to do it, it would raise their profit margins quite a bit just because of the sheer fact that they were bringing on so much revenue up front.
It also had like a coach development system that ascended you as you got better at sales and as you got better at retention of your own clientele, correct?
Exactly. Yeah. So your coaches would start off as like a junior apprentice. And then as they brought on more clients and as they managed a bigger book, the coaches would be paid more based on the percentage of revenue associated with how many clients they had. And so essentially the idea was to incentivize coaches to keep clients and to bring new clients in because they were paid as a result directly from that. And the idea was, okay, you have these coaches with these big client books, they can be professionals, you develop these junior apprentices up until like associate partners, and they can essentially manage the business for you.
Right. So you have, like, you could potentially have multiple coaches with multiple pods of their book of business inside of your own gym that you oversee and manage their development, right?
Exactly. It was kind of like the combination of a co-op plus like the fact that you're actually managing the co-op. So you have all of them under your wing, you're developing coaches, and then your coaches are essentially eventually developing kind of their apprentices and stuff like that. So it's just like feeder system.
Dig it. I totally dig it. Awesome. So now here we are. You're managing your brick and mortar. You're managing MadLab growth and opportunities there. Marketing, obviously. When did it break, or when did you say thank you but no thank you? I've got too many things going on, or did that ever happen?
Yeah, in terms of where that was at, I felt always a little bit overwhelmed managing both things because it was a massive infrastructure to manage MadLab. At one point, there was like 200 clients, and I had to manage not only the global marketing, but I had to manage systems and marketing practices and procedures for the gyms themselves. And so I was doing that plus doing it for my own gym. And so I was okay for a few years. And then at one point, I kind of recognized that if I just focused on one thing, I would be really good at that one thing. I was focusing on two things. So I felt like I was always just 80% as good as I could be. And so in August of last year, I put in my resignation for MadLab because I thought there was opportunities coming down the pipe. And I felt like it was a good time to take the gym and move it to an online infrastructure. And I felt like we could really make waves by doing that.
Did you have a crystal ball or what? I mean,
Yeah.
you decide to say thank you but no thank you to MadLab. You decide in November to start building the required infrastructure to move your brick and mortar online. And February, March of 2020, COVID hits and you were ahead of the curve. Were you paying attention internationally to what was going on overseas? Did you kind of think about the need, or had you always known there needed to be a digital component to your brick and mortar offering?
I think for me, since my background was so heavy in microbiology, 10 years ago, if you scroll back to like '09 in Facebook, I put this really long post about how the whole world's going to see a pandemic and a massive disaster. And I look back, I was like, ha, I was right. Someone was on there calling me an idiot and stuff, and like a chaos theory person. But so I look back and I was like, wow, I kind of almost accidentally predicted this. It's like a happy accident. I could have never predicted the scale that it would have gone to. But so it was like, I felt like there was something that we weren't going to be able to control and manage. But I also felt like the online world was becoming super prime and super ripe for this kind of stuff, because I felt the gym world was good, but the profit margins and the operations that you work at are always going to be at a level to where you can't necessarily scale to the level that I wanted to scale up to.
Right.
And so both of those things, the idea that I think something's coming down the pipe, plus there's a massive opportunity coming down, gave me the confidence to be like, all right, let's dump this one thing and let's jump like all in on this other thing.
Now, looking back to that decision in November, here we are just about 1 year later. And I'm sure you're happy. Like, you are doing exceptionally well. The company is doing exceptionally well. What did you put in place? What were those, if you could share 3 mechanisms that you adjusted, changed, or was it a full overhaul in order to pivot online?
Yeah, basically I have this triad that I kind of installed into the online business. The first thing I had to do moving from a gym owner to online was recognize that it's not a in-class coaching environment. That's not what this is online. You have to move into a personal coaching realm, which means you have to have significant touch points with your clients, and you have to do more than just fitness. Like, Zoom calls get boring and get old. People don't care anymore. So we had to create essentially I call it the brain code rewire. We have to rewire the way we think about the operations we're currently doing to wire them into the new operations we're going to be doing. And so the idea was, okay, we need to install significant touch points, and we need to have more than just like fitness. And so what we did was I brought on a colleague who was a doctor in clinical psychology, and we built out an entire mental health curriculum based on cognitive behavior therapy, a social health curriculum to bring the social environment, which is massively helpful for COVID. Yep. We brought on an entire sleep curriculum based on a cognitive behavior therapeutic sleep model. We brought on 100% custom nutrition and meal planning service. And then we brought on, we recorded 16 weeks of workouts that people follow and do. It was 3 fitness and 3 yoga workouts that they could do per week. We took all of that, and I was like, all right, we're not going to deliver this just by hand. So I installed these into an online platform. So we built an app, we built an online application to make it work. I installed it was like 250 videos for the whole program, installed them all to drip out weekly, installed the workouts to drip out weekly. Then I installed checkpoints. So they have to do a weekly check-in. They get daily check-ins from us to see how they're doing. They have a mindset inventory they have to fill out so we know where they're at mentally. We have phone calls they can jump on for lifelines if they need it. We have a group call once a week. And so over the course of the whole program, what I realized was you have to have a customer touchpoint map. And the customer touchpoint map for us was, in the online world, we're going to be selling something at a premium. Like, our program to get into it at the minimum is $3,200 for 12 weeks. And so to be able to do that, I installed there's like 212 touch points in that program for these people. So I tell them, like, I'm like the guy from Taken. If you fall off the program, I will find you and I will bring you back into the program.
Kidding. No kidding. So now, I mean, this is massive, because I've not heard, or at least I've not had a chance yet to explore, anyone else that has put this much thorough analysis, research, data, structure, touch points in anything. And you did this. You started last November. When did you launch it? Did you launch it right at the beginning of COVID, or were you still tinkering and building it out as you went, and then it has evolved to what it is today?
Yeah, we launched it in January as a beta. So I took on 10 clients as a beta. And then from there, February, COVID hit. March, COVID got worse. And so we came out of beta middle of January, filled it up again with our next crew. And then February, we had a massive month. So it just kept growing and kept scaling and kept just exploding. And so it became this thing. I was like, COVID for a lot of people has been a miserable disaster. And for us, it was sort of a blessing in disguise, because so many people are struggling and suffering at home that we were able to provide them with a well thought out, high touch point opportunity to level up their lives.
And it's not a single solution of, here's some Zoom exercise classes and then I'll see you tomorrow. You have an entire package that encompasses the total if you want to use the word holistic, some people don't like that word, but whatever, you have an entire package that is mental health aspect, nutrition aspect, physical fitness aspect, the mobility or the restorative aspect. And then there's still a layering of human touch points in there. That's huge. So
Yeah.
who is we, by the way? So is you and same partner from the gym, or do you have a new team?
Same partner. She's my significant other too. We haven't killed each other yet, so we're still going strong.
So does that mean you let go of operations in the gym? Because you're in Reno, correct?
Yeah. So what we were able to do was we sold the physical location of the gym to another facility. So we were able to sell all of that, but in the agreement, we were able to keep the brand. So we took the brand away, sold the physical location, kept our brand that was pretty well known, and moved all that online. So we still had the presence, we still had the systems, we still had everything that we needed to run this thing online. We just had to reinvent ourselves a little bit, which I think is an important concept for gym owners. It's the idea, and this is why I say we're building when I work with gym owners on this kind of stuff, I say we're building a transformation offer. This isn't a unique selling proposition. This isn't like a sentence of what you do. I do this without that. You're building a proposition to transform somebody's lives in a high-end, high-touch point way for a high ticket price. And so it needs a radically different way to build and design an offer. And that's what we did. I had to say, as a gym owner, I need to move out of my lane and move into another lane to redefine and reignite what we do in a whole different environment.
No, for sure. For sure. And there's so many gym owners that are very singularly stuck in their worldview of themselves as gym owner, that they aren't even aware that there's the lane over there that they need to be in. We say you'll need a completely new self in order to take on this new challenge.
Exactly. It's rewiring your brain code. It's got to be away from this linear line and into the line of flexibility. And I think that's the strength of small business. It's the ability to be able to pivot shift quickly, whereas large corporations, they can't. They're going to take years to pivot shift from this. Us as small business owners, we can pivot shift almost instantaneously and start doing something that's going to increase revenue and prevent a shutdown.
Correct. No, it's correct. Large corporations are the aircraft carriers of the world, and they're slow to change. So exactly. I think this is impressive. So then how do people listening today that are interested, how do they find you? If they've got questions, if they have concerns, if they're thinking to themselves like, man, this guy's got something, radically different. How do they find you?
Yeah, I'd say the best way to find me is go to facebook.com/ChansLogic and then send me a DM that just says Beyond. And I'll send you over a 20-minute video on how to build the triad of business. So how to build and optimize a transformation offer, how to rewire your brain to learn how to pivot shift and be flexible in business, and then ultimately how to build a system to where you can sell packages of $3,200 or more online in wellness. And if you want that, just go to facebook.com/ChansLogic and give the code Beyond. If that's too challenging to figure out, just go to StoneAgeFuel.com/9step and it'll automatically take you to the same place.
I so love it. I mean, so we've had a chance to explore on In the Trenches a whole bunch of, and you may have seen even some of your friends and colleagues, former colleagues, other coaches that you've known for a while. They've been on here. A lot of the times we talk leadership, we talk about struggle points, we talk about looking back and lessons learned. Before we kind of jump into the final couple of questions, what lessons, what are the ones that stick out in your brain as like strongest lessons learned since you've been in this leadership role?
Yeah, I think the strongest lessons for me are, number one, you have to understand that everything that happens is a result of your actions and you have to be responsible for your actions. So if COVID shuts your gym down and you just maintain the course and you shut down, your actions created the non-opportunity to grow and change, whereas you could have pivot shifted and adjusted yourself. So I think holding yourself accountable to the fact that you can make decisions to make change, and also being open to what others are doing. And I've screwed this up in the past too, especially with like MadLab, when stuff like Gym Launch was coming out, we looked at it saying it's wrong, but in reality, what I've done now is I look at those kinds of things and I say, what are they doing right? And what can we emulate? What can we model to make something better and to use what they're doing to make what we do better? And I think that's the mindset we have to adopt, the mindset of abundance and growth. Nothing's wrong. Like challenges aren't wrong. All this stuff isn't wrong. it's something that's working. The market had a demand for it. People liked it. It was growing. So how do we take that, emulate it, maybe pivot shift and adjust it so we can use it and make it better? And so like at this point, our marketing ecosystem is we run Facebook ads. We have what I call a permission-based captivation structure. So we use Facebook groups to give high value, high touch point conversations to people, which drives them into our Facebook ads, into Messenger. And we have real conversations with people to drive them to a phone call. But all of that is the idea that I've been open to listen, to pay attention, to understand how the market works, how the online coaches and consultants market works, and how I can use that in our market to create this high touch point environment, to have a system that builds this like faucet that you turn on and you have as much business as you want.
I dig it. I think that's so critical for folks to recognize that there are systems in place. It's funny that you made the mention about this last night on Facebook about order and organization. We talked about discipline equaling freedom. There has to be structure put in place if you want to end up at the place you want to go. You can't just hope your way through it or wish your way through it or guess your way through it. We don't fumble upon this kind of freedom and success. You have to put things in place.
Exactly. There's a really good book called The Road Less Stupid. And he talks about, it's called don't pay the dumb tax. And it's like, how much dumb tax have you paid? I've paid hundreds of thousands of dollars, but it's the idea of everybody who becomes an entrepreneur, who opens a business, wants this freedom. They want to sit in Tahiti drinking their Mai Tais and be like, look, I don't even touch my gym, which is a fabrication in and of itself. But outside of that, it's in order to create freedom as an entrepreneur, you have to have discipline. To have discipline, you have to have structure. To create structure, you have to have operating procedures. So therefore, discipline ultimately creates freedom. Structure is freedom for your life. And when you dive into the idea of sitting in Bora Bora, drinking a Mai Tai, not managing your gym, which is what the gurus preach, you're not in the business at that point. You have to install a CEO to manage for you, because you can't step away like that. So you become an investor in the business.
Yep, correct. And to be able to have that foresight, or to be able to have that wherewithal to know that that's the step. Okay, fine. It might be 3 years, 5 years from now, but what are the 3,000 steps I need to take before that? Because that's not coming next week because I signed up with a special class or a course.
Exactly. It's not like 30 days, you'll fill your entire program and you'll take over the world. It's probably gonna take a little longer than that. You can probably do it, but you're gonna have to weather the storm. You're gonna have to learn my concept of just making it to the next meal. So I know, like, if I can make it to breakfast today, then I'm gonna make it to lunch. Then if I can make it to lunch, I'm gonna make it to dinner. And if I can make it to dinner, I'm gonna make it to breakfast tomorrow. And that's what keeps me going. It's not looking at how hard the journey is. It's just make it to the next meal.
I love it. I totally love it. Speaking of those that are struggling, because we are obviously, I shouldn't say obviously, in some states, they're opening up, the gyms are open, the scene is, clean and clear, and folks are getting back to business. Some states obviously are not. So I don't want to prematurely say that we're behind COVID. And there are some other things on the horizon politically that are obviously changing in a week and then in a couple of months, but whatever, or maybe not. So for people that are today currently struggling, whether they're gym owners, whether they're gym managers, whether they're, entrepreneurial coaches that may have been working for a gym that's closing. If you could use today's audience or today's platform to speak to the audience that's listening and provide any form of insight or any wisdom, what would you provide? What would you say?
I'd say my biggest piece of advice is don't be proud. Don't follow the status quo that says stay in your lane, be a gym owner, be brick and mortar, because if you want to stay open, you need to stay abreast with the market and how the market's changing, which is a dynamically profound way right now. And so I would say if you're struggling and you want to do this, the simplest thing in the world is just to put a call out on Facebook, even your email list. Hey, we want to take 5 people and do something new online with nutrition and fitness. Would you be interested? And you can generate a bunch of ideas and a bunch of people off of that alone just by asking. Like, the hardest thing to do is just do something. Most people won't do it because they're afraid to do it, because they're afraid of the what ifs. They're afraid of, what if I fail? What will other people say? What do the other gym owners in those forums say if I go online? Will I be a sellout? And it's like, well, no, what if you don't? What if your gym closes? What if you have to change your entire livelihood and you lose everything? Like, that's the mindset you should be in. What's the cost of not taking action to improve and pivot shift to where you need to be?
Man, I love it. I totally love it. Talk about one of the strongest points that we've had delivered here. Chandler, man, I really appreciate your time. I know that you've got a thriving brand, and I'm excited to see where it goes. I mean, we've got a chance now. We're coming into the holiday season, and right behind that, becoming New Year's. Anything on the horizon you're excited about, or something maybe you want to share about where you're going?
Yeah, we're killing it right now. I think we're hitting like almost 35, 40K months in our wellness business. We have the business consulting side of things now too. We call the Beyond method, which is growing because everybody wants to know how we did it and how we can replicate our systems into theirs. So that's exciting. But the coolest thing that I'm doing right now is I have a 2-year-old daughter, and we're taking dance classes and we're in gymnastics and I'm swimming with her. So the fact that I just get to be home with her all the time now, I'm not at the gym all the time. I literally, I'm in my little office right now inside our guest house, and I'll just walk into the living room in 10 minutes and I'll be able to hang out with her. And so that's what's really cool. I get to be the dad who's home, the dad who gets to be there, the dad who has the freedom to ultimately live life with her and not just for her.
I totally understand that. Our daughter turned 11 months 2 days ago. So we're about to have a 1-year-old. So I'm chasing behind you, one year behind you. I get it.
Good times. It's like the best thing in the world. It's like this little best friend you didn't know you need, but you have now.
Oh, for sure. And she's shadow. She's enthusiastic. She's learning. I mean, I love it, man. I totally love it. Awesome. Well, I sincerely hope folks walk away from today with a ton of notes and follow up and send the Beyond code. So from all of us here at Push Press, myself personally, I really thank you for your time, brother. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. And honestly, if anyone just has questions and you are struggling, just reach out to me. Like, you can find me. I'm pretty open on Facebook. Almost everything I do is public. So just send me a message, send me a friend request, and ask me questions. I'm always happy to help out. I'm not the type of person who just tries to shove things down people's throat. I listen, and I'm here to support. And ultimately, my philosophy is we need to build a culture of care amongst ourselves and amongst everybody we surround ourselves with.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. If you like what you saw, make sure you like our channel, subscribe, and check out our other videos right here.